My mistake. Are you tired of hearing the same old advice when it comes to real estate? Do you want to learn from the biggest and baddest mistakes in the industry? Then welcome to Learn from My Mistake, the podcast that brings you real estate professionals from all over, sharing the biggest blunders and how to avoid them. I'm one of your hosts, Jake Remillard, and I'm joined by my partner, Marie Baginski. We're here to give you the inside scoop on what not to do in the real estate game. From brokers to investors, we've got it all. We're not just here to tell you about our guest failures, though. We're here to help you learn from them so you can make the right moves when it counts. So buckle up and get ready to hear some juicy stories and expert advice you won't find anywhere else. This is Learn from My Mistake. New episodes drop every week. Don't miss out. Learn from my
I love that you were so excited to hear "learn from my fuck up" one more time at the end of that, Jake. I could see his face, like, wait for it, it's coming. Jake obviously put together that beautiful intro.
I like it.
Thank you. When I put it together, I was like, one more. We have to have it in there.
one more time. Well, welcome everybody. We have not been live in a little bit, which is kind of sad, but also exciting to bring somebody new on. So this week we have an amazing guest, Julierae, who we know from the boardroom, which is a common theme because I feel like we've had a bunch of boardroom members as guests recently.
But none is good.
Definitely none as good as Julierae.
I will probably be the worst. Like, never again.
You're amazing.
This is going to be her mistake. She's like, that was my biggest mistake. It's coming on this podcast.
Going live.
Well, welcome. Julierae, why don't you? And can I throw in the tidbit that for anyone who missed it, her husband was also a guest on the podcast. So I would love for you to go back and listen to Jeremy's episode. But in the meantime, Julierae, introduce yourself.
So my name is Julierae. My husband and I own and run a pest control company in Phoenix, Arizona. We also are in real estate and have been since about 2018. The pest control company was started in 2011. We also just launched a pool company called STR Pool Guys with Fuad Bazi. What else do we do? We have basically a flip company called Triad Acquisitions. We do a bunch of stuff, probably too much stuff.
No, I love it. And Jeremy's he's an agent, right?
Yes.
Or broker?
Full-time realtor too. Yeah.
So that is a lot.
Yes.
You also have some children.
Yes, 3 of them. They don't seem to want to grow up and leave the house, but I guess that's a good sign. I don't know.
Yeah, right. You guys are just like too good of parents.
Yeah, they're like, we like it here. We'll stay.
With all of those companies and stuff, obviously you have a lot going on. What do you do? Like, what is your role? Do you have like the same role that you fill in all of those companies, or does it kind of fluctuate a little bit?
So I was actually talking to my team this morning about this, that my official title in pest control is vice president, but I feel like my role is basically making sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing and planning for the future, like forecasting goals and what we need and working backwards to make sure what we make our goals and what we need to be doing every day, what every technician needs to be doing, what the office needs to be doing. So I kind of will be doing that with STR Pool Guys as well. So just duplicating that. And I also do it with Jeremy and his real estate business. So in January every year, we sit down and we're like, okay, what are you planning on doing this year? How much do you need to do a month to get to that goal? And then we sit down every single week together and see where we're at with our yearly goals in every single business. So I'm kind of like the guy that nobody likes because I'm always on everybody. Like the bad guy, the known bad guy. So, and I monitor like 5-star reviews. Like I'm just basically monitoring everybody all the time.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably such, and I it's not even think, just from Jeremy's podcast with us, I know that that is the reason why you guys are able to operate multiple companies and why you have achieved what you have is because you fill that role. So own it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the bad guy role. The be better role.
I wouldn't name it the bad guy role, but you're like the accountability role, right?
Yeah.
And I love how you even just mentioned like you're breaking it down. You're saying like, what's the goal, right? Now, how do we break this down? What do we need to make? What do we need to implement to get to this goal? Right? It's a lot of even, you know, stuff that we were learning in traction.
Yeah.
Right. About
it's
like,
exactly traction. Yeah. Like I'm making the text read traction so they understand why I'm doing things and the words I'm using and why everything is in a 90-day cycle and why we have to have the meetings all the time. So they probably aren't that interested in it, but they're going to learn anyways. And actually, one of our technicians that is working in the pest control company is changing over to the pool company, which will also be running on EOS. So he'll already know everything by the time he fully transitions over there.
Nice.
Yeah.
What are you using? And this is kind of like selfish curiosity because we haven't been as good about it, Marie, but we also like have our team read books. Do you guys get together on like a weekly basis and discuss, or like what function are you using to make sure that they're actually getting that
So this is actually funny. We used to do weekly meetings, but our business has exploded so much that there's just no time to get all of us together for that long. So we do it monthly. I actually create tests and quizzes for them to make sure that they understand what they're reading. So like right now we're on chapters 1 through 3. Once you get 90% or greater on the test, you get to move on to the next set of chapters. So I have kind of half the group is still on 1 through 3 and the other half of the group is on 3 to 6 or 4 to 6. And I also switch up the tests. So they think they're getting the same test and I'll give them a completely different test.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. I've told you I'm the bad guy. I'm like, I'm going to make sure you actually absorb this information.
Okay, now wait, now I got to go deeper. Like, are you using a system or a tool for this? Like, are we using Quizlets or are they manual like paper or are they?
No, it's actual written tests that one of them I've made, and then another one a technician made it because he was at school, so he couldn't be out doing services. So we gave him like random office tasks to do. Yeah. So he's read the chapters. He's actually read the whole book. So he hasn't made all the tests yet, but he's read it. And one of his assignments was to create tests, and his tests are actually much harder than mine. Even though they're multiple choice, they're somehow harder than mine, which is good.
Okay, so then you're just like emailing them like a PDF of this.
No, they sit down and take it. Like they sit down and at the meeting and everybody takes the test.
Oh my goodness, awesome. This is amazing.
If our team is watching this right now, they're like, shit.
Yeah. So I love it. I love to read and I love to learn. I don't know how much they love it, but I think their motivation is like to get through it, and like they just keep trying. Like they're like, "This is over."
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is like a killer freaking technique, Jake. That I mean, we have a virtual team that's all over the place, but I can literally see us like creating a Google form.
Well, I can send you mine too if you want,
and just like test them.
Yeah.
Well, our previous book too, we did by John Gordon, we did the Energy Bus
as a company,
yeah. And that was an amazing book. Like we still will talk about, you know, the energy vampires and like people to stay away from and things that happen. So yeah. I think that's
actually have a custodian of the rules. Like he
talks about it.
Yeah, so like every time a new person comes on the team, like they become the new custodian. So
cool.
we passed it along a little bit. We've actually been slacking on that, so I'm glad we're talking about it because I'm definitely going to go back and make sure that they're still tracking.
I actually gave the Energy Bus to one of my employees to read, and a couple months later, I'm like, noticed he was being negative, and I'm like, hey, have you read that book? And he's like, oh, not really. I'm like, well, you might want to start because you're not being good right now. And he was like, oh, okay, sorry. And he's been much better since then. But I'm like, this is what I was talking about with these soft skills and being positive. And like the other guys are watching what you're doing. So you have to be careful what you say. He's like, okay. So
It makes such a difference. It really does. I mean, even throughout like, my time in the military, like the morale, you start having like one or two soldiers that start talking about the team. They start talking about the unit, and then before you know it, it just spreads like cancer. So
Yeah.
it's huge. Morale on a team, the camaraderie, the culture, it's so important. So if you're
Oh
listening
yeah.
to this and you get that book as a gift from somebody, they're giving you a hint.
Yeah.
Please read the energy buzz.
Yeah.
Okay, so Julierae, I don't know if I want to like go back and ask like how did you get into this role, or if I just want to jump in and be like, now that you're in this role with multiple companies, like what's your biggest issue? Where do you feel like are you being spread too thin with all these companies? Like we got to get into the juicy stuff. We got to get into the
So
mistakes.
sometimes I do feel like that, but then so we went to the intensive a couple weeks ago in Dallas, and Brandon Brittingham was the speaker, and he was talking about people were saying the same thing, like, do you get tired? Like, is it too much? And he's like, I run 20 companies. And I was like, I think I can run 5 or 6 if he can run 20. Like it really helps to be in a room where there's much more successful people than you that are doing much bigger things than you, because you're like, I'm kind of being a little baby. Like if he can do that and make time to teach other people how to do it, then I can figure it out. So I do feel like frustrated sometimes, and sometimes I feel overwhelmed, and I just have to like take a break and like recalibrate kind of. So I'll just get quiet and take a break for an hour or an afternoon or something, and then like pull myself back together, and think about the end goal and why I'm doing everything. But I guess for me, the hardest thing is everybody has bad days, or they get into a bad mood, or they have a bad morning. The hardest thing when you're running teams of people is showing up as your best self every day, and like realizing that they might be able to be negative or challenging to you, but you can't do that back to them. You have to be positive. You have to set the example. You have to be like, we can handle this problem. We can solve it. It's fixable. Like you cannot feed into the nervousness or the fear or the negativity. You just have to rise above it. It's a challenge sometimes, because sometimes you just want to be one of the bros and be like, yeah, dude, this sucks. But you can't. You cannot do that.
I love this analogy, and I think Jake can relate to it so much because you're the one running and managing the team on the day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And I could literally see you smiling and nodding with everything that Julierae just said, as like she was speaking to your soul.
Oh yeah, like I have whole pre-meeting routines. I don't know if you do, Julie.
Oh
But
yeah.
like, if I know that I'm in a funk, like I have a certain playlist on my Spotify, and I'll just give myself like 5 or 10 minutes. And I'll just like sit here and I'll just work through whatever I need to. That way I show up as like the leader that I need to be. Because
That's
you're
awesome.
exactly right. You can't show up the way that they show up. You can't just show
Yeah.
up and bring your problems in, because then it radiates and everybody picks up off of it. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
I completely agree. Is that something that you learned by like, were there some early years where like you had done something and learned that, or is that just like innately like that's your leadership style?
Well, this is kind of an embarrassing story, and this happened way back in the 90s, but for some reason my district manager decided to have a 6:30 a.m. managers meeting on a Saturday, and
Oof.
our whole management team, basically we didn't go to bed, so we just went out all night and showed up at the meeting, and he wrote all of us up. We were all written up. It's the only time I've ever been written up in my life, and it was highly embarrassing. Of course, the night before was fun, but he's like, you guys cannot show up like this. Like, you just embarrassed everyone on the team. And we did, and it's funny now, but it was horrifying at the time, and I was very disappointed in myself. So I make sure I don't show up to meetings like that. Like, I just needed that one time of being an embarrassment, and I was done forever. So that's how I learned my lesson, by doing it the wrong way. We thought we were cool and we could play it off, but he started asking us questions, and we were just like not in good shape to answer them. So He just got mad and wrote us up and went home.
Right. You're like, we're hungover,
Yeah.
exhausted.
Yeah. We're like, we have not slept yet. Leave us alone.
Okay, so this was back in the 90s. So this was during some kind of W-2 career.
Yeah, I was working for Guess, and I was actually running the sixth biggest store in the entire company. I was still a co-manager at this point. This is before I got promoted to store manager. So there was 5 other co-managers on that team too. So yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah. But I think there's so many lessons learned from the W-2 world that we can take with us to entrepreneurship. You know, we were just talking about leadership styles with some other members of a mastermind where, you know, he was like, I just left my company for 5 weeks and everything went to shit. And I was like, did you warn the team that you were going to be gone for 5 weeks? Like, were they anticipating it? No. I'm like, well, that's your choice in leadership style, right? But, you know, and I don't know how much time he spent in the W-2 world, but I think the W-2 world gives us a lot of like foundational lessons,
absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely,
I know for Jake, it was the military lessons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had tried to like run a team prior to being an NCO in the Army. We would have floundered. We wouldn't have made it week 1. You would have kicked me out. We never would have gone forward.
Yeah, for sure. I had to learn I had 35 people on staff, and I had to learn how to continually motivate them to do things they just absolutely did not want to do. Mm-hmm. And I did that. I worked for Guess for 6 years, and I learned a ton. Like, I never could have gone on to run Hunter Pest Control or help Jeremy with real estate or now open STR Pool Guys or even do the renovations company. But there's no way, because I'd have none of that knowledge that I got from working for Guess.
So are there any, were there any like crucial lessons that you had to learn along the way, specifically like you were just talking about, you know, motivating people, or when you were managing that 35-person team, were there any fuck ups that kind of stood out, like, you know, that really helped you transform into the leader that you are now?
Yeah. So we actually had this manager he was the nicest guy. He was hilarious. He was actually from London. Everyone loved him. And I felt like I should be the manager because I'd been working there for longer, and he transferred in from another store. And I was just so salty about the fact that I wasn't the manager. So I said to one of the other co-managers, I'm like, why am I not the manager? I'm like, I'm the guy that's doing everything. Like, I'm the manager, but he's got the title, right? Because he was just like really personable and like joked around a lot, but he didn't really do anything. And he said it's because he knows his numbers backwards and forwards. So when the corporate comes to visit us and see how the store is doing, like, he knows exactly how many men's shirts we sold and how much revenue was brought in from that. Like, he knows every single part of the numbers part of the business. And I didn't have that memorized. Like, I didn't know the numbers. And I learned the numbers real fast after that. Like, I knew we were making our goal, but I didn't know, like, on a granular level, like what our payroll was at, what our expenses were at. Like, he didn't take the time to teach me or ever mention that to me. It was me seeking the knowledge out. Like, why am I not the manager? So I made sure from that point on that I knew every single aspect of the business, so that if anyone asked me, I would have an answer, like, right away, like, memorized. So, and he was also really good at kissing ass, which I still struggle with. I try, but I'm not good at it. I'm more like factual, and he was good at finessing people and BSing people, basically. I'm still not good at that, but I know the numbers.
Yes.
What was the time frame between when you were like, oh, okay, I need to learn these numbers, to you stepping up and taking that management
less
role?
than 6 months when I got promoted. It was very, very fast. But that's another thing. Like, his bosses never explained to me why they promoted him over me. So it was like really up to me to figure it out. Like, they weren't like, oh, we wanted to promote you, but Raymond knows the numbers better than you do. Like, there was no explanation whatsoever. And I don't do that to my team. Like, I'm like, I want to promote you, but here's what I need to see out of you. make them guess. I don't try to hoard information. I'm like, this is what I want from you if you want more money. So, and more responsibility.
Well, I love that. I mean, that's another lesson learned that, you're literally implementing now what your experience was, like the exact opposite, right? Like you're like, I didn't know what they wanted. I didn't know what was going on. They weren't communicating that to me. So now I've taken that and went in the opposite direction and said, okay, I'm going to be as helpful and communicative as I can with my team so they know exactly. I'm sure you're so good with the numbers. They know what their KPIs are, right? Like what goals they need to meet and then what you need from them to go
every single day. Like every single morning they get a morning text with a breakdown of all our numbers and what our goals are. And if we're surpassing our goal, if we're not making our goal, like they know every single day. There's no day that they don't know that information. So
yeah,
I'm like fixating on it now.
That's amazing. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about this like new venture, because this STR Pool Guys, this is very, very new company, right? Like baby stages. So
we just launched on May 2nd. So we've been working on it for about 6 months, I think. We had a lot of obstacles to overcome because we needed somebody that knew the industry backwards and forwards. We needed somebody that was willing to leave another position to come work for us. We needed a truck. We needed to get all the supplies together. It's taken us about 6 months to get it all, ready to take customers and launch, basically. Our main tech is named Tucker, and he's been in the industry for 10 years. He basically knows how to do everything, including repairs. So that's awesome.
Nice.
And Fuad is he's our only partner. I guess it's us and Fuad and his wife. And his main thing is the STR community. He wants to get STRs. So that's really what he's focusing on, while I'm focusing more on getting residential customers. Because the STR world is his world, and he's got all the connections there, including his own STRs. So,
yeah. Well, I like it because, even though it's a different industry than pest control, it's obviously another service-based industry. It requires some of the similar features as far as like coming to your house and doing work, right? Coming to your house and spraying, or coming to your house and like maintaining your pool. So did you find that helpful, or was that part of the reason why you agreed to join forces and kind of take on this new business?
So our ultimate goal for Hunter Pest Control is to become Hunter Home Services. So we'll pretty much have everything under one roof that a homeowner would need, whether it's pest control, pool company, plumbing, house cleaning, landscaping, everything. The reason I thought of that is because Hunter Pest Control is named after Jeremy's son, Hunter. And I'm like, we have 2 girls too, and I don't think it's fair that only the boy gets a company named after him. So STR Pool Guys actually started as Tatum's Pool and Landscaping for Jeremy's daughter. And it morphed into STR Pool Guys, but it's still something that in my plans, Tatum will not inherit, but start working at and learn the industry. I don't know if I'm even answering your question at this point, but I also started a company for my daughter, Taya, which is called Ice Queen, which is just basically an ice cream truck. So we have like more things in the pipeline, but I don't know if I'm answering your question. There's a lot going on in here. But
no, it's fine. It was just related to, being in that service industry.
Yeah. Right? So it plugs in really easily. Like we did buy a separate CRM for that. And, but we don't really need it because we can just Tucker's in our pest control system. So we can just put jobs in there for him. And it's very seamless integration into Hunter Pest Control right now. I don't think other companies will be, but with the pool company, it's easy because we can program things to be weekly, bi-weekly, whatever we need in our system. So it's like he's doing a totally different job, but it's integrated very easily.
Very nice. So just for someone maybe starting a new company, like what lessons have you learned even just in the past 6 months getting this up and running? Were there any challenges or things that came up that you weren't expecting?
Always. So when I'm thinking about what companies I want to start, it's probably kind of nerdy, but I go on Facebook and I go to like cities or subdivisions and I'm like looking at what are people always typing in that they need. Like pest control is one of them. Pool service is another one. Home cleaning is another one. AC is another one. Like I look I look for things that there's already a demand. So I feel like it gives me a better chance of success with whatever company it is because there's already a continual demand for it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a point where I was like, Jeremy, why is this taking so long? Like, I don't feel like it should be taking this long. And he had to do some soul searching. And he was like, I guess I'm kind of dragging my feet on it because the fun part for me is like designing the t-shirts and doing the wrap and like buying the truck and like finding the employee. And like, that's what's fun for him. And I was like, I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm like, let me in, coach. Like, let me grow this business. Like, whatever you guys decide or the colors and the designs and how you want the text to dress I'm fine with that. I just want to go make money and like grow the company. So as soon as I said that to him, everything started moving much faster. Nice. And he's like, I didn't realize I was dragging my heels because I was not looking forward to the part that you are looking forward to, if that makes sense. Like, I'm like, and it's something that I never even thought of. I was like, well, aren't you excited to get this going? And he was like, yeah, but this and that. And I'm like, you're killing me, dude. Like, let's go.
Right. So, and you're like, that's all the stuff that I love to do.
Yeah, I'm like, that's what I told you guys. I'm like, you guys set it up and just hand it over to me and I will take it from there. Like, I'll get the customers, I'll market all over Facebook. Like, that's the part that it's exciting for me, not what the truck looks like. I mean, it's cool, but that doesn't make us any money. So like, that's not the exciting part to me.
I love that. The practicality of like, okay, now how do we get cash in the bank?
Yeah. And I'm like, I have a guy relying on me now to pay his bills. So it's like puts pressure on me, but it's not pressure on me that is scary to me. It's exciting. Like, I'm like, let's do this. This is going to be awesome. So I'm not like, oh no. I'm like, yes, let's do this.
Yeah. The accountability of an employee is something like very profound. I think with us, like our greatest leaps and bounds and progress in systems and everything always come from actually having an employee in that role and like having to develop it because they are now there.
Yeah.
That's been my journey, right? Like from the beginning of entrepreneurship. So I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. I feel like a huge sense of responsibility towards everyone on the team and like making sure that their bills are paid. Like I think there's 10 kids total that rely on income from our team. So I feel like a big sense of responsibility on that, but I don't see it as like a burden or stressful. It's more like, this is awesome. Like we're providing for people, you know, like I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I'm like right there with you. I mean, when Marie first started talking to me after she smoked me in a game of pool, which we're not going to get into. One of the things that she said was like, you know, I've been in real estate. I've been doing this for, you know, however long it was. And she didn't have anybody working for her, but I've been an entrepreneur for like 6 months and I already had my own like VA, my own assistant working for me. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Marie, but that was like one of the reasons why we ended up going and doing some of the things that we're doing now. But ever since then, like I was always really excited, like you're saying, about delegating, about bringing somebody on, because I knew it was opportunity, it was growth, it was, you know, it was the next piece.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, Jeremy does find it stressful, and that was something that him and I went back and forth on for a very long time. Like, I'm always like, let's hire people. And he's like, no. Like, yes. It's still to this day a thing. And he's like, no. And I'm like, we have to hire people to grow. So
Like they can't hit every house with the number of people we have.
Yeah,
We must hire someone.
Yeah, I'm like, let's buy a new truck. And he's like, no. And I'm like, yes. So even this house, I think he touched on that when he was on your podcast about we bought our first house together. And then I was like, it was COVID and I had all 3 kids at home and I was homeschooling them. And I'm like, if we don't get a bigger house, bad things are going to happen because there is not enough room for all 5 of us to be home 24 hours a day. So we moved into this bigger house and it has a huge driveway and we now have like 6 cars parked out front. And there's no way we could have done that if we were still living in our old house, there's no way we could have grown without first taking the leap of faith that we were going to grow. So he hates it, but I'm always pushing him and making him uncomfortable. He's like, leave me alone.
I love that. So have there been any, issues with you kind of running this business as husband and wife? Like, what has come up for you guys? I mean, I love that what you just shared about like having a conversation to learn, like you love what he doesn't love to do, right? And like realizing how you guys can like complement each other. But for anyone who's listening that might be working a business with their, spouse, significant other, do you have any like juicy, like what are your lessons learned, or like what comes out of it that you're just like, make sure you sit down and have this conversation, or make sure, there's always like tips and tricks. I want to know what has come up for you guys.
Sometimes it's hard to separate president and vice president from husband and wife. Mm-hmm. So we try to keep the conversations separate, but it doesn't always work. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's back and forth within the same conversation. So I'm like, now I'm speaking to you as your wife, or he'll be like, take a break here. So, but I think if you are both focused on the same end goal, it makes things much easier, because even if you're mad at each other or you're going through a bunch of BS and it just sucks at that time, you can still get through it because you know that you're working towards the same end goal. And there's so much trust that you don't have to worry that they're going to do something shady or, they're going to quit next week. It's like you're in it together, and it does suck at times. But I think for Jeremy and I, it brings us closer together. Like, I don't think that we would be as happy with each other if we weren't working towards the same goals all the time, if that makes sense. I know that it's very rare that husband and wife work well together. So, and we're aware of that all the time. And we're like, I think we might be freaks of nature. And we're like, I think we are, like we always have this conversation that most people cannot do that. Like they will not succeed in working together. But we always also say that we're total opposites. Like I love systems, routines, like clockwork, appointments. Jeremy loves excitement. He loves new things. He loves talking to people. He's very adventurous, and he loves all the things that I don't like. Like he spends his time at BNI, networking events, police foundation, chamber of commerce. Like if there's a lunch going on somewhere and he's not invited to it, he's all sad about it. Like he's constantly talking to people. So he fills in places that I don't want to do, and I do the things that he wants nothing to do with, which is the basic routine, boring, everyday stuff.
Yeah.
Which I like that, and he hates it. So that's why if we were both the same, I don't think we could work together well, because no one would be organized and it would just be pure all the time.
Yeah.
Either that or you'd both be super organized if he was more like you, but there'd be no excitement and it'd be really boring all the time.
Yeah, exactly. We'd probably be accountants or something. No offense to accountants, but
I love that.
Yeah, it wouldn't work.
All right, Jake, do you have any last questions for Julierae?
I do, and I was thinking about this because I know this is our signature final question, and it kind of ties in with the last question that you just answered. But I would say, when Jeremy was on, we spent quite a while talking about the husband and wife dynamic because we really haven't had many guests that could go there. So I would say, what has been, or this is my question rather, is what has been like, from your perspective, the biggest mistake that you've made as a wife and business partner, like those roles together? If you can answer that. I mean, that may be a very loaded question, but if you know, or if you have something, I would
I
love
know
to
what
hear.
I think it is, but I don't know if Jeremy would give you the same answer. So it's kind of two things. Like we had very different upbringings and very different ways we saw money. So
Mhm.
like my dad made a lot of money, but he was also very irresponsible with it. And he came from a middle class neighborhood where his parents were very responsible with money and like very it was
Conservative.
very stable. Like
Yeah.
I think my dad got a rush out of having a lot of money and then not having money and then having to get money again. Like that was fun for him. It was like a roller coaster ride. And Jeremy's childhood and upbringing was very stable. So if something happens with money, like if we lose money on something, he tends to freak out about it. And I'm just like, oh, well, like, we'll make more. Like it's like not a big deal. So that freaks him out about me. And like buying this house freaked him out. Like he was like, oh my God, that's so much money. But our house costs less than the average house in Phoenix, much less, like $100,000 less, but it was still like a huge leap for him. So I think it is a mistake, but also not a mistake on my part, if that makes sense. And the other thing that I think he would say that I am constantly making a mistake with him is my impatience, because we are so different and that I want to do things and he has to really think about it and mull it over in his mind. But by the time I've approached him with an idea, I'm like, basically, this is happening. So here you are. And then it's like, we have to argue about it. And
Yeah.
it eventually will happen, but it's like he doesn't like that. And I'm like, okay, I've made the decision that this is happening. And he's like, no. And then I'm like,
So what I
what's happening?
understood even from our dinner out with you guys, because we had an incredible dinner together, and it was like he admitted this so easily. He was like, she already thought through all the different cases and all the different scenarios and already came up with the best possible solution for this. And he was like, and I was still stuck at like step one,
Yeah,
mulling it over, but she already thought about all this. And then she's like, okay, so this is going to happen. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm
yeah,
still just thinking about what's going to happen if we buy this big house, right?
yeah,
And I love that your perspective on it of like you needing more patience, where I think his perspective was like, I need to catch up because she's so far ahead
yeah.
of me.
He's like, I'm not ready for this. This is not happening. No way. And then I have to like kind of be patient and be like, okay, but if we did this, then this would happen. And I kind of have to, I guess I'm not a very good salesperson. So maybe I need to work on my sales skills and let him come to the same conclusion as me. But I'm just like, blah, here's what's happening. And he's like, no. And it eventually will happen, but it's like a struggle.
Yeah. You know how there's like that stereotype that husbands, allegedly, I'm not admitting anything, don't listen to their wives. You
Oh
could
my
try to
gosh.
play
Yes.
into that and be like, remember when you were talking and you had that great idea last night and you said that we could do this?
I don't know. I could try that, but
If it works, give me some
yeah,
credit.
I'll
If
try
not,
to
then
try
it
it.
wasn't my
Like,
idea.
this is your idea. And he'll be like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, it was your idea. I just already got it, 50 places faster than you're
Yeah.
ready to go. So
Yeah,
love it.
because I really do think about things. And he goes, do you just research stuff all the time? And I'm like, yes, I'm just constantly researching stuff, like all the time, constantly reading, constantly researching. And he's like, Like, that's weird. And I'm like, how is that weird? I think that's the way to be, so that you like, why would you try to do it on your own without researching it first and seeing if there's an easier, faster way? Like, I don't want to do somebody else's mistakes that have already been done. I'm just going to find the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't like reinventing the wheel. If there's something proven that's out there, I'd rather do the research first and then just follow that.
Yeah, that's how I am. But Jeremy's very like hands-on. He wants to work through problems and see it from his perspective, which is fine. But it's, for me, I'm just like, okay, be patient, be patient. And he's like, oh, you're so impatient. And I'm like, but I feel like I'm being so patient here.
I'm laughing because I have a couple of my own wheels that I'm building right now that I think may already exist, but
they already exist. We just don't know about it.
Yes. Jake has a lot of great ideas, and I'm like, yeah, that's already done. It's a great idea. Just go Google it.
Well, that's one thing about Jeremy, that he's always coming up with great business ideas. They like legitimately are great, and I should start writing them down, but that will inevitably lead to an argument every single time he brings one up, because I'm like, we already have 6 different things going on at once. We do not need more things. Like, this is a great idea, but I learned a few years ago, don't pay attention, because he'll forget it. Like, he'll forget it in 24 hours. But I used to take it seriously. Like, he will forget. So I don't argue anymore. I'm just like, okay, good idea. And then he forgets about it.
Nice. I love that.
But, yeah.
All right. So just to wrap up here, for anyone who is interested in your services, or I know, wants to follow you, you post some hysterical things on Facebook and Instagram, by the way. Like, I do follow you. Your stuff comes up on my feed all the time. You are hilarious. So for anyone who wants to either follow you or use your services, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Facebook is my full name, Julierae Applegath. Instagram is my full name, Julierae Applegath. If you just want pest control, you could go to our pest control, which is Hunter Pest Control. If you just want pool service, just go to STR Pools. If you want to sell your house, contact Jeremy Waters. We're all over Facebook. So.
I love it.
Yeah. If you want to do a flip, contact Jeremy. Anything real estate related, contact Jeremy.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being our guest. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
And that's it. We'll wrap up here. We have another guest coming on in a couple weeks, so see you guys then. Other than that, have a great Tuesday.